All right, so thank you, past me, for reminding myself to start recording. I'm just going to go through things again a little bit for those who are watching the recording in the future. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. Today we're talking about how to learn languages using online resources. I have updated it a little bit for 2021, but some of the resources will seem familiar if you attended last year. As per usual, this class is being recorded. The slides and the recording will be sent to you via email within a few days. I will post the relevant links in the chat towards the end of the class. And for those of you who arrived a little bit early, I posted them beforehand as well, but I'll repost them. You will get those links in the email also. If you have a question as we go along, you may either post it in the Q&A or post it in the chat. At the end, I will allow sometimes for people to ask question on voice. You will use the raise hand feature in order to let me know that you would like to ask a question at that time. So the big secret that I alluded to with the clickbaity slide at the beginning is fun. Essentially, there's no secret that's going to make you learn languages, 10 times faster or anything like that. So the secret is make it enjoyable enough that you can keep going in the long run. At least some of your practice is going to have to be fun if you want to get to a high level of skill. Which gets us to our goals. Depending on your goals, you may want to consider for how many years old is this class? This is, I am with the services for adults at the library. So this is intended for adults. Those who are not adults are still welcome to attend, but I am not going to be wording things or featuring resources that are meant for young kids. So for those below about middle school age, it might be a little bit confusing. I can go into online resources we have for kids a little bit at the end, but I haven't been featuring that. Sorry if that was unclear from our promotional materials, but the Tech Tuesday series is intended for adults. All right, though we don't restrict attendance per se. So if you are learning a language, you want to think about why you're learning the language. Are you learning it for school? Are you learning it because it'll give you better opportunities in the work world? Because you want to understand the entertainment that you already like that's in that language, because you're traveling, because you're moving abroad, maybe your spouse speaks that language, etc. And so depending on what your goal is, that will inform what sort of methods you use and how high of a level of fluency you want. If you're preparing for a brief trip, then you don't need to be perfectly fluent in order to function well during that trip. You'll just need some phrases and enough understanding to understand the responses to those phrases. So in that case, using a traditional study method and just sort of cramming the information in can be fine. But if you want to get close to fluency, you're going to have to expand beyond that eventually into reading and watching things that are intended for proficient speakers and into potentially into conversation groups and things like that. But a lot of the formal resources I'll be talking about are more for beginners. It's good to go in with realistic expectations. You're not going to learn any language overnight, no matter how much they say, 24-hour program, etc. And generally speaking, one app or one course is not going to make you fluent on its own. You do have to expand beyond that. I recommend taking it easy. This is very mentally taxing, potentially. Especially if you've been out of school for some time, you're not used to formal study on a regular basis. And it's sort of like a muscle. You need to be in shape for that. So you start off slowly and then you can increase how much time you're spending on it and how much effort you're putting into studying if you have the time to do so, and when you find that you are not currently exceeding what you can do. Because as I said, if you want to get fluent, you need to be in it for the long haul. And get ready to embarrass yourself. If any of your goals include being able to talk to people, you are sometimes going to say completely the wrong thing or write completely the wrong thing. You know, you're going to mistake one word for another. I have, I think everyone who's gotten to be even conversational in another language has an example, but I had one where I was talking with someone about the hobbies of one of my relatives, and I was trying to say, oh, well, she makes necklaces and jewelry, right? But we were speaking French, and I mistook the word soutien-gorge, which is a bra, for the word collier, which is a necklace. And the words aren't similar at all, but there is that gorge, which is the throat, in the soutien-gorge. So that's how I made that mistake, right? And so everyone thought it was funny and we laughed it off. But you have to be ready to have that type of experience for sure. And again, no shortcuts. I say this a lot, but I say it a lot because it's important. You will probably, if you get really into this process, you will probably get to the point where you feel like you're not progressing, or perhaps you even feel like you're making more mistakes than before. This can be because either you are burning out, you've put in a little bit more effort than what you're able to really sustain at the moment, and you need to take a step back, maybe take a break entirely for a little while until you recover mentally. It can also be because your ability to notice your mistakes has exceeded your ability to correct them. And that's really frustrating. But if that's what the situation is, you just have to keep going and realize that that in itself is a form of progress. It's also a fact that the early progress you make can seem really fast because every word that you learn is really impactful. You know, you're learning the 20, the 30, the 40, et cetera, the most common words, and they occur all the time. So your understanding increases really fast, but then you get to a point where you're learning the, 5,000th most common word, and you're not going to hear it very often, but it's still going to contribute. So after that brief overview, and again, if you have questions about anything I've covered in the past, we can go back on that. Just let me know. But after that brief overview, I'm going to move into free resources you can use, which is the meat of this class. So as an overview, I'm going to talk about a couple of self-paced learning apps, which is Duolingo and Memrise. These are both free. They're not particularly through the library. I will also talk about the Foreign Service Institute courses, which are also free. But that's like, it's recordings and a textbook essentially, as well as textbooks and learning materials you can check out online from the library, and flashcard software you can use. One thing you might notice if you attended last year, or if you've been using our language learning materials in the past, is that I'm not covering Pronunciator this time. That is because Pronunciator is no longer available through the Peninsula Library System, unless there's some libraries that have decided to subscribe individually, but I don't think that's the case. You might check, though, if your library offers Mango languages. There might still be a few that offer that. So in any case, Duolingo is available for free. It's got a browser version as well as an app for Android and iOS, that's iPhone. And it's one of these free but with paid features types of models, what they call a freemium model. But with that said, I find that the amount of content that you get for free is really extensive. And the reminders that, oh, you could have more if you pay is not very much. So I think that it's, as far as free but with paying features services, Duolingo is pretty good and pretty unobtrusive. It's gamified, meaning that they have it set up a little bit like a game. A lot of these language learning apps are. So they have incentives. If you use the app every day, you have a streak. So it'll say, oh, you have a 10-day streak, you have a 20-day streak. And you earn points by maintaining your streak, by completing lessons. And that lets you unlock optional content for free, which is stuff like you can make little outfits for Duo, which is the owl, the little owl logo, or you can unlock optional lessons, such as they have one in some languages about words pertaining to romance. So you could learn the romance words. And the way it's structured is that the new words that you learn are associated with words in a language that you already know. So if you learn a word for car, well, it's associated with the word for car. They're not showing you a picture of a car. It has relatively little visually in the app, which on the one hand means it's a lighter weight app. It's not going to take a lot of space on your device if you choose to go for the app version. And the website will probably load more quickly than if it had more video or photo content if you're using the web version. But some people prefer to have a lot of visuals in their learning experience, right? And they'll have you translate things. They'll have you type the translation or click words for the translation if you're on the app. It's somewhat forgiving about things like accents, but it will remind you, oh, you should have put an accent over the A, that sort of thing. And it has an option to read off the phrases, and then it has, it'll try to judge whether you said it correctly. With that said, it's not completely reliable on that front. Depending on what device you use, some devices have more success with the microphone than others. Like I have good luck on my Android phone, but one of my coworkers was saying that on her iPhone, she has trouble with it. But you can turn that aspect off if you prefer. Memrise is pretty similar in terms of the way that it teaches you, except that it has videos available of native speakers saying the words, which can be helpful to give you those visual cues of how it's, how does the person's face and mouth look when they're saying that, which helps you then with listening comprehension on anything that has video content. Because of course, most of us, and especially people with some hearing loss or also young children that are still learning to speak, will rely partially on lip reading to understand speech. There is audio to the person in chat. Oops. Let me put that to all panelists. Okay, there is audio. You may want to check your volume. I am sorry that I did not put captions. Let's see, actually, just as an experiment, since we do have someone, since we do have someone who's struggling with the audio, I'm going to try this one and see if we can't get some subtitles generated by PowerPoint from current slide. Okay, hopefully that generates the subtitles. No, it's not. Live. Okay. Yep. All right, I have tried to set up the subtitles, but it's not showing them to me at any rate. Well, I'm trying to. Okay, it looks like the person who was having trouble has disconnected, perhaps to try to figure that out. In any case, why is it not showing subtitles? Well, in any case, my apologies for the delay. I'll just move along and the YouTube video will have subtitles. So there is that at least. Okay, so the one thing about Memrise is it does have a ranking system, which for me was sort of not really an advantage, but some people might find it advantageous. Let me just check. Is everyone else hearing me okay? I haven't seen any commentary to that effect. I assume that most people are hearing me. You know what? I will allow that one person to talk. I may edit out your comments after, but go ahead. You will have to unmute yourself as well. Hello, Liz. Okay. Okay, it looks like you managed to put your comment in chat, so I will mute you again. Good to hear that everyone else is able to hear me. All right, so the last sort of formal course I wanted to cover is the Foreign Service Institute, which is, or rather the courses they have made, which they made a bunch of courses in the 60s and 70s mainly for diplomats to learn languages for working abroad. Now they're an institute that trains Americans for foreign service, as the name implies. And these courses are free and they're in the public domain. And the reason they're in the public domain, okay, excellent. So the person who's having trouble has sound now. The reason why they're in the public domain is because they were created by employees of the US government. There's a sort of interesting wrinkle to US copyright law where the things that are created by full employees, that's like full-time employees especially of the US government for US government use, are in fact in the public domain. The US government can hold copyrights, but that would be on things created by other people or agencies or potentially created by contractors, which basically the founding fathers believed that it was advantageous to limit the things that would be in copyright or other forms of intellectual property in order to encourage reuse for the advancement of culture and technology, right? Like they thought that copyright was a bit, it had advantages, but it had disadvantages also. In any case, the thing about the Foreign Service Institute courses is they are older, but for some languages, they're the only course or the most comprehensive course that's available to English speakers. And there are more than 40 languages available. So if you're learning a very popular language, popular for English speakers to learn, and there's therefore, some materials that were made in the last 10 or 15 years that are more geared for the general public, then I wouldn't suggest the Foreign Service Institute. However, if you're learning one of these languages where there's not much available, it's worth a look. And of course, being that they've been digitized from older print materials chiefly, the visual quality and the audio quality may not be good in all cases. If you'd like to get things through the library, mainly you'll be looking at Libby/Overdrive, which is the same thing. Overdrive is the service, Libby is the app, but it's a place to check out ebooks and audiobooks. And many of you are probably familiar with this, but they do have language learning textbooks and audiobooks, as well as fiction and other recreational reading in a variety of languages. Because most of the things on Overdrive are things that we buy for the library specifically, or we or someone at the Peninsula Library System headquarters, it ends up being mainly English, Spanish, and Chinese language works, with a little bit of other languages here and there. But in terms of language learning materials, it'll be a bit broader. Now, most of the items on there, with the exception of the magazines, are single use, so you might need to wait for holds if it's a popular item. The magazines, though, are completely unlimited, and again, mostly English, Spanish, and Chinese, although in that case, it's not us doing the selection directly. We've just subscribed to a base of magazines, and it's the same ones that were on RB Digital previously, which is the other omission from this course, is we don't have RB Digital anymore because they've been subsumed into Overdrive. And their video content is also something that we would have to subscribe to individually, but given that the most popular service there, which was Acorn TV, is not available, we have elected not to do so. Another option you have is Enki, and this one should be available to all California residents without needing a login. And for language learners, the thing of most interest is they have a bunch of For Dummies language learning books. And those are simultaneous use with no waiting and no time limits, which is awesome. And I really wish that more of our online resources were like this. Now, the name might be similar, but this is Enki, which is a flashcard software. And this is a free flashcard software that you can just go download. The only one that's paid, I think, is the iOS, that is the iPhone app. However, you can use the free browser version on iOS if you don't have the budget to get the paid version, or you'd prefer not to jump in without trying it, right? The only thing is the features of the web version are a little bit more limited, but if you're able to, say, install the full version on a computer and then use the web version on your phone, that should be a pretty acceptable option. You can add audio, video, or images into your flashcards. There are pre-made decks for a lot of popular subjects, so you can get the, the most common words in Spanish flashcards, or travel-related words flashcards, or geography, etc. It's great for learning vocabulary and studying for multiple choice tests if you or anyone you know is still in school. And the advantage of using something like this is that it also spaces out the timing of when you have to study based on how well you said you knew it. So if it's, say, it has a button that says, okay, how well did you know this? I knew it very well, not very well. I barely remembered it at all. I didn't remember it, right? And so if you pick, well, I remembered it super well, and the last time you had seen it was 2 days ago, well, it'll make the interval bigger. So it'll be 4 days or 5 days, something like that, until you have to see it again. And that way, the things that for whatever reason you really struggle to remember, you will see more often, while not waiting not wasting time on ones that you remember very easily. So to answer the question in chat, Enki is linked off of our library website. That's the ebook service. And Anki, which is this flashcard thing, is something that you would get just over the internet. With that said, you don't have to go through the library website to get to Enki, the ebook service, on account of its, it doesn't require a login. You don't need to have your library card or anything like that. I'm going to repost all the links that I haven't covered some of these yet. And I neglected to put a link to the flashcard software. But here's the links that I posted at the beginning, which some of you arrived after that, so you probably don't have it in your chat log. But now you should be able to see the various links. And I will find you the link for Enki, the flashcard software, later. As for what I recommend to do while having fun, well, I don't have a lot of specific links for this because this is going to be super personal. But you can watch TV, movies, read books, listen to podcasts or radio. You can play video games if you're into that kind of thing in the language that you're learning. And I would recommend you can use this alongside formal study. So, if you have your Duolingo or you have your, you checked out a Pimsleur language set from the library or etc. And by the way, because we are open for browsing right now, all of our physical materials are more available than they used to be. So feel free to check that out. We have quite a few language learning books, DVDs, and CDs available at the library. And you can, of course, place holds from some of the other branches also. When you're a beginner, it's best to pick either really simple content or really familiar content. So content intended for language learners, or stories and material that you know well. So documentaries about subjects you know well, or adaptations of stories you know well, or dubs of movies you've seen before. Or if you've seen the movie before with subtitles, but it's in the language that you're studying now, then you could watch it without subtitles or with subtitles or captions in the language that it's in, right? I find personally, some people have different experiences with this, but for me personally, if I put subtitles in English over it, I'll just be reading the subtitles. But if the subtitles are in the language of the film, then it will help me to understand what they're saying. Transcripts and captions are super helpful also. So we do have one service where you can get streaming video in other languages. And how did I not put that? I did put it on there, canopy.com. So Canopy, and I put the plain canopy.com link because depending on what library you're with, it'll take you a different route through the website, but your access will be the same. It just wants to know, are you with Burlingame or are you with Daly City or South San Francisco or whatever, right? All the libraries have it. You get 10 videos a month plus unlimited kids content and unlimited use of the great courses, which does have some language courses available. So that can be worth checking out. They have language courses specifically, I believe, for English, Spanish, French, Greek, and Latin. And then international films in a variety of languages. So general tips for finding more. Government websites may host learning materials for local languages. Sometimes news sites will create simple or abbreviated news podcasts in their language. Okay, and to answer the question in chat, are all great courses available from Canopy? The answer is no. There's some content that's restricted to, I think, the Great Courses Plus is how they have marketed it. And so some of their courses are with that only, I believe. But there's a fair variety of great courses on there. And we actually do have some great courses on DVD, I think, as well in the library system, whether it's South San Francisco or other branches. Yeah, so yeah, some of the content they like to restrict to their individual paying subscribers, unfortunately, for those of us who may not want to shell out for that. Another thing you can do, and I would strongly recommend this if you're trying to find reading or viewing materials in a particular language, is adjust your language settings in your web browser and in your search engine. Because what it will do if you try to search for something is it detects that, let's say if you have all the menus on your computer in English. So you open up your start menu and it's in English, right? It'll say, oh, this computer is an English language computer, so the person using it must speak English. So I'll favorize English language results, which is fine until you're thinking, well, I'm studying Spanish, so I would like to have Spanish language results near the top. Or I already speak another language. Maybe you already speak Chinese or you already speak German or something. And so you'd like those results to be visible as well. So you'll have to set that preference. To answer the question about what was the platform that replaced RB Digital, it is Overdrive, also known as Libby. I'll put that in chat. And that is one of our links that I posted as well. The pls.overdrive.com would be how you would access our materials on there. If you have membership with another library, you may be able to access their Overdrive as well. It's a pretty common platform. Okay, so you can also look for user-created content, so not so professional stuff. And there are even people making language learning podcasts and that sort of thing. The quality can be quite variable, so expect to have a few misses along with your hits. If you're looking for materials in Chinese, for video specifically in Chinese, I would recommend going to this, I'm not sure if this is pronounced correctly, but Youku. I don't actually speak any Chinese whatsoever, but I'm putting the link here. It's because you may have heard of the so-called Great Firewall. It's basically in China, there are certain web services that are restricted in mainland China, and therefore they have competing services that are usable in China. And so a lot of the social media and a lot of the video and so forth are going to be on these Chinese specific services. So for video, that's one of the big ones is this Youku. And so they'll have a lot of things in Chinese on there. Okay, so we've been asked to include this slide about what you can do when you've been vaccinated. So you can visit people inside without a mask. Obviously, this depends on everyone being comfortable with that. You can visit people who are not vaccinated as long as it's just the one household of unvaccinated people and they are not at high risk. So let's say that your friend who is vaccinated has a son who is age 10 and can't be vaccinated yet, but he's a very healthy child, then you could visit him without risk. But of course you would want to go with whatever's comfortable for your friend, right? And this slide does not reflect local restrictions. So there might be some regions that have more strict restrictions, right? But this is what the CDC recommends. You can travel domestically without quarantining or getting tested. Depending on the location, you may be able to travel internationally without a test, and you definitely don't need to quarantine after travel. However, if you're visiting someone who's at severe risk for COVID, it's not a risk of severe COVID, it's not recommended for you to remove your mask indoors with them, and it's not recommended to attend large gatherings, although I think that they're going to start permitting larger gatherings under certain conditions in California starting June 15th. So if you've been looking forward to that, that's the date to look forward to. Yes, thank you for coming. And I'm going to start showing some of the online resources as a bit of a demo. But if you need online tech help, we do have the capability to reserve for that. I will also put our email address in the chat so that you can email us if you have further questions that you didn't manage to get to today. So I'm going to get out of that and that. And I will stop recording. Yes, the recording will be shared with you. That was something that we talked about at the beginning, but you were not there yet, but that's okay. The recording will be sent with you via email within a few days. And I am going to stop recording now, but you can stick around if you have questions and or would like a demo. So thank you for coming in any event.